The members of the plumb are very dedicated nerds and scholars of art. We're not interested in forgetting things that happened before. We're interested in combining the dialogue with what's happening now and what happened before in looking towards the future. So I was in a collective versus. We were mostly from the same era of University of Guelph students, and we were operating overlapping with a collective that Dan was running called Y+.
So this was a project that ran, it was called Y+, Y+ Contemporary, and it ran from 2015 to 2018. And it was in many respects the prototype of the plumb.
There was a few at the same time, YTB, 811, Team Macho, some other sort of groups of artists in Toronto doing work together.
COVID happens and we're all kind of cooped up in our spaces.
The actual inception of the plumb started around a lot of COVID dialogue, meeting in the park, having drinks with friends, having very, very casual conversations about infrastructure problems and the need for space and lack of space.
Still kind of thinking about this idea of this project that of Y+, and this kind of community-oriented project, but then also in thinking about kind of this meshing of high-level contemporary art, kind of mashing up with community spaces.
Myself and Daniel Hunt and Laura Demers and Miles Rufelds and Blair Swan, I think there was a closer kind of core of us that were having this dialogue together. Once Daniel and I were like, oh, we should actually seriously do this, then what does it look like to get people on board, for real this time?
I got involved with the plumb by Daniel Griffin Hunt approaching, trying to get together as many people as fast as possible.
In reality, Anthony held dinners at his house. It was on Tuesday nights. It would be an open invite.
I started utilizing it as a way to reach out to other artists. People that didn't really know each other that well were coming to the dinner parties, but they were all kind of connected by trying to do our projects in Toronto.
You could host anywhere from 2 to 25 people. It was actually a wild thing that happened. But we met a lot of people because of this, because he was building this community as well.
It was a loose sort of potluck situation, but I would sort of make enough food that people didn't have to feel like they had to bring anything if they just wanted to show up.
This kind of double wheel would happen here where, we were tapping into Anthony was tapping into his group, and that was kind of building, rhizomatic relationship of how these communities work.
We both went to Guelph University. We knew people from University of Toronto, a couple OCAD.
Anthony was actually going back to school at that time, so he was like, well, I don't know if I can actually commit to this financially to be part of this. I do want to be involved. And then I was just immediately like, well, I want to be involved in this.
From that, we reached out to many people. I would say probably 20 people or so. It was funny to see how that happens, right? Some people are in immediately. Some people they want to see who else is in the group. They want to see these things. The long and short of it or whatever is that about 16 of us, I think, maybe came together.
16 at first. But I feel like the folks that were engaged were folks that we already had kind of maybe had relationships to, or we reached out to others that might be interested in, and then they had someone else that they wanted to bring in.
I found a space that had a 72 DPI image, a super small, low resolution image. And when you're scouring the internet looking for stuff, you're like, that's a gem, that's underpriced effectively, right? So I came, I met the real estate agent, I met the landlord.
Daniel found a lease, gathered a lot of people. It was very, very quick, within a 48-hour probably duration of gathering folks to make it work.
Then we kind of had this art space that we had to kind of deal with. How did the plum get its name? Two things that were particularly important was the subterranean nature of the plum and the fact that there is open plumbing existing within the space, but also the idea that a plumb bob finds a center.
I think how the plum operates and how we run is really quite informal by also the nature of how it started, which was incredibly fast. And I think that due to that, we also just had to be very, very quick and responsive. And I think that is something that is we were rooted in and actually we tried to maintain.
The requirement is not to spend your entire year coming up with exhibitions for the plum. You get to cook an idea for a year or two. Because there is so many of us, everyone sort of gets to pursue that they would like to see.
I studied curatorial studies in art history, and I have held curatorial positions in like regional galleries previously and been more of a cultural worker, I suppose. But I do find that there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of ego involved in that sort of curation, and we can kind of let that go a bit with the plum.
There's at the same time been this reoccurring sentiment that this is everyone's third job. Everyone who's involved in this is an artist and has something that pays the bills.
You know, some people might call it a curatorial collective, but I would actually say it's more of a community initiative. It's not necessarily just curatorial in the sense that it's a bunch of curators thinking about what it means to manage space, but rather it's a variety of artists, writers, cultural workers, people in the arts who are invested in culture, all coming together. There's a conglomerate dimension to it.
I mean, that is also the beauty of having so many folks from so many different kinds of backgrounds, whether it's like you're an artist or curator or working in as a cultural worker in different institutions, different capacities, that you can come and bring that experience and to assist the folks that need it when they need it.
So the metric of I think, getting people involved is getting people excited, and it's something that sometimes we forget about art. We're being serious. We're telling you about it's sustainable, it's all this shit, which is fine and true and valid, but also it has to be fun too.
There's been no fighting. There's been no need for fighting because there's no sense in fighting about this. It's just a vessel for everyone's sort of dreams to kind of cook and come to reality. Yeah.
We recognize here conceptually that gatekeeping in the arts is a real thing, and that it happens for many reasons. Reasons being funding, reasons being aesthetics, reasons being politics, etc. But the nature of having the amount of people that we have in the plum allows us to be able to, let's say, open that bottleneck in a way that allows many different trains of thought, ideological processes, and effectively art forms to kind of come through.
There's few spaces that exist that provide opportunity for a lot of emerging or underrepresented voices to actually have a space to show work and be able to funnel up the system.
I think we are interested in pushing the larger institutions to doing a better job. If they see what we're doing as something that is pushing them or challenging them in a way, that would be ideal. A big city like Toronto's art scene, when it's at its healthiest, has different sizes of institutions doing their best, and some of these larger institutions have not been doing their best for a number of years, and we're happy to give them a little poke.
So I think that the role of the plum is to be more hardcore. We can do things where we don't have to be accountable to any stakeholders, shareholders, donors. We can take more risks, and I think there have to be spaces like that act as a foil for kind of the bigger institutions that are not able to do that.
And ideologically speaking, artist-run centers should live and die by the people that make them, and that should be reborn by the next generation of people who are interested in doing it. Because when you start passing the mantle across, you end up actually just upholding a specific kind of legacy that is not your own. In doing so, you might end up upholding values that are not your own either.
It's always amazing to me to think about how little resources we have here and how much impact we're able to have with that. And it really, does make you think about disparity between what we do with such little money and then what other institutions do and the reactions that people have to those.
There's these models that exist throughout the history of Toronto, but also exist globally, that were always kind of pertinent to the building of artists. And it was distinctly lacking in the city right now, right? So this is like a space that is existing in a similar capacity, or something like Loop or something like 811, which was like an immediate model for that, right? These spaces where like fast things could happen to build up artists and ecosystems.
I think some of the most interesting shows that I've seen here have been curated by artists who have this perspective, or maybe more in tune to a particular ecosystem that someone from a curatorial background might miss. And I think that's also something that the Plum is able to do, is that we're like looking hyper locally at things and then building from there to expand.
It was about thinking about the integration of ecosystem, right? You want to be part of the community. You have to like be part of the community.
I thoroughly believe in collectives, regardless of being in Toronto, as a model for bringing together many people. It's a way of finding like a collective truth that gets away from a single person's idea of what is important.
I feel like the two most gratifying things of the Plum for me are, one, hearing an artist come back to me saying, I had the show with the Plum X year or X season, and then they have like a really big show after that, or like another gallerist or another space comes to them, they saw the work, then they get the push to go and have another show, and they keep going. And like, that is so nice to hear. And then two, I've met like my most dearest friends from being in this space, so that's a huge bonus.
I think that kind of the next step of the Plum is to build a publication of the time that happened here. It's something that I find does not happen in Toronto at all, and is so pivotally important to thinking about kind of the histories of artist-run centers. I want to be able to build, or I would think that we all want to be able to build this experience for someone else. Someone who wants to find out what art is, and they pick up this book that is 5 years of Plum exhibitions, writing, thinking, this snapshot of things that are happening in the city that is effectively a roadmap to building your own space.
I think had COVID not happened, I don't think the Plum would have happened.
And it happened in the most organic way. I think it's funny sometimes when you think, maybe you or other people, you've had this thought where you think to yourself, wow, I don't think I could do that again. There was so much luck in the implementation of it. I think about that about getting my driver's license. I don't think I could get that again, but it's one of those things where it happens for a reason, and the Plum was very much like that.
If anyone has a free space that they would like to give the plumb, I would just like to put this out there into the world. If you have a space suitable for the plumb to occupy, please reach out. That doesn't have to be him.